Obviously, you've been from Houston. Take me through how you met Beyonce.
Okay, that's a really good story too. We all were part of this thing called the People's Workshop, right? So just back in the day, you know, it was like, you know, if you grew up in the 90s, it felt like there was a lot of kid artists, a lot of teenage artists that came out. Think about all of our legends, from Usher to Monica to Brandy to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it felt like it was a lot of kids being signed. Another Bad Creation, Criss Cross, Subway. It just felt like it was a lot of kids being signed to labels in the 90s, you know what I mean? And having hit records.
Correct.
So that, I think, is what inspired, I forgot the guy who started the People's Workshop, I can't remember his name, but I think that's what inspired him to do the People's Workshop, right? And it would be a bunch of kids, whether you're in groups, solo, you know, whatever. It was like a competition. And it would lead up to this thing called the Sammy Davis Jr. Awards. I don't know if they got the right to use his name or not, but I just know that it would lead up to this thing. And that's actually where I met Robert Glasper. That's where I met my very first love, this girl Judith. That's where I met, you know what I mean? Like, it was a group, you know, it was like a condensed amount of kids that—
Was it a community? Was this a club?
No, it was just like a, I don't know, have you ever heard like NAACP AXO, the AXO competition?
No.
It was like, that. It felt like it was just a group of kids and competing for, like, you know, to get to the next level.
Was this a talent show?
Like talent shows, basically.
Okay.
And so we all knew about each other in this People's Workshop thing. And eventually, when like the high school I went to, eventually Beyonce and LaToya ended up coming to our school.
Okay.
All right, so I met them before they got there through this guy named Preston Middleton via the People's Workshop situation. And we became fast friends. We were all young. I'm a little older than they are, but, you know, we were all, you know, we all interested in
the same community of music.
Yeah. And they ended up coming to my high school, you know, their freshman year, and I was just going to my senior year. And we just became, you know, really fast friends, you know what I mean? You know, their father, you know, took to me early on.
Yeah.
My mother took to me early on, Miss Tina. You know, I was a songwriter. So I was like one of the very few people that knew that they had a record deal or they were getting a record deal, you know what I mean? So, you know, when I found that out, you know, we would talk all the time about how is it, you know, what is the business like? And even when they went to Oakland to work with Dwayne Wiggins, rest in peace, Dwayne Wiggins from 2020 Tone, they were the only people my mom would let me call long distance. Like my mom, because it was like, my mother knew that they were doing something
They
positive.
were doing it. They were doing something that you wanted to do.
And she wanted me to know that it was possible. So it's like, okay, if your friends who are younger than you are doing this, you can do this too.
Yeah.
So she would allow me to talk to them. That's why to this day, me and Kelly and LaToya, we all like this, you know, because that was a time of exploration for me, and it really made it real for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That they were doing it. You know what I mean? And you know, those moments led to us, you know, having like my very first session with them. You know what I'm saying? And I'll never forget it. It was like the aha moment. So, you know, when you're a kid, you're like, okay, man, I want to be an artist. You know, I'm in groups. Me and my boys doing groups, and you know what I mean. And you know, I knew that I always wanted to be a producer. I always wanted to write songs. You know what I mean? That was something I always wanted to do. But I just kind of felt like, okay, I'll do it for my group. You know what I mean? The moment I had that moment with Beyonce and Kelly, LaToya and LaTavia, we're in the studio working on these songs, and I'm like giving them direction, and they're giving it back to me. Like, you know, they were so above and beyond. You know, at that point, they were so ready. I don't think people realize how ready they were at that age. You know what I'm saying? So I was blown away, right? But it hit me. I was like, I was working with Greg and T and my boy Scooby, who passed away too, but it hit me in that moment, I was like, oh no, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Like, I don't want to be in a group. I don't want to make no albums. I don't want, what I want to do is I want to be behind this board. I want to give direction. I want to make music for other people.
Wow.
They are the reason why that thing happened to me, happened for me.
That's so beautiful.
You know what I'm saying? So, I've always had a high respect and adoration for all of them because they really gave me, they
triggered it.
They triggered it. Your kids on the phone and this three-way and y'all talking. You know what I mean? We were talking about music. It wasn't even like, kids be talking about frivolous things on the phone. Yeah. Like they would tell me they would play me whatever they were working on over the phone, And like, yo, listen to this, Brian. I'm like, man, that shit sounding crazy.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
But even for perspective, right?
Yeah.
And I chuckled a little bit because people don't realize, you just said it, like, my mom would let me call them in Oakland. But back in the day,
long
distance calls was like, it was extra. It was expensive.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have, they used to have a promo code, free nights and weekends.
Free night, yes.
Nights and weekends started at 7 p.m. So like, I'll call you after 7.
After 7,
You know what I mean? And, that was with the cell phones. Well, with the landlines,
man.
You wouldn't know until the bill came back. And then when the bill came, it was like, yo, who in the world calling somebody over here in Houston or Oakland or got like
$1.50 a minute. $2 a minute. My bill is $400.
Yeah. So to have that clearance from Mom Dukes, but also that's different with that mental understanding of y'all were in high school.
Yeah, they had just gotten to high school, so they had been on that trajectory from like elementary school, middle school. They had just gotten to high school. I was a senior, when all this stuff was happening. They had just gotten to high school, and they were already in the 9th grade. They were already above and beyond. Like it was like you knew that they were going to be stars.
That's crazy. Like I